wanted to read an article that I wrote on Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4, amazingly, claims to be written by Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon. It has Nebuchadnezzar detailing his own humiliation at the hand of Israel's God because of his own pride, and then his restoration by Israel's God, who he calls the Most High God. His humiliation involves him losing his mind for a period of 7 times, often interpreted as 7 years, after which he's healed. The following are some problems with this chapter actually having been written by Nebuchadnezzar, or the events described in it having happened. 1. There is no Babylonian source or historical evidence indicating that Nebuchadnezzar went insane for 7 years, or that he ever honored Yahweh as, quote, the Most High God. 2. Nebuchadnezzar himself was the cause of the Babylonian captivity, which did not end during his life. If Nebuchadnezzar converted to acknowledging the God of Israel as, quote, the Most High God, and was personally shown via a curse and healing how powerful Yahweh is, why did he keep the Jews in captivity? 3. It's written in the style of other biblical writings, which makes it likely that it was written by a devout Jew rather than a pagan king. 4. The pagan king Nebuchadnezzar is made to quote or reference Psalm 145:13, Isaiah 40:17, and Job 9:12. The part of Isaiah quoted by Daniel's Nebuchadnezzar hadn't even been written yet when Nebuchadnezzar was actually alive, as it was written by someone who knew Cyrus's first name. 5. The prayer of Nabonidus shows a likely source for this chapter. The prayer of Nabonidus. Nabonidus was a king of the Babylonian Empire who ruled after Nebuchadnezzar. He's the father of Belshazzar. Interestingly, Daniel says that Nebuchadnezzar was the father of Belshazzar. Nabonidus is the subject of a text found in the Dead Sea Scrolls called the Prayer of Nabonidus, in which he is made to describe himself going insane for 7 years and then being healed by, quote, the Most High God of the Jews. The Prayer of Nabonidus. And you can read it here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Given the extreme similarity with Daniel 4's story about Nebuchadnezzar, it's clear that the two stories about the Babylonian kings are related. However, the question is whether the borrowing is from Nabonidus to Nebuchadnezzar or vice versa. Here, the direction of the borrowing can be inferred by recognizing that it would not make sense for someone to apply a story originally about Nebuchadnezzar to Nabonidus, as Nabonidus is a much less famous king, and in the minds of people familiar with both kings, it would sound ridiculous. However, the opposite is not true. It's very easy to see why someone looking to show Yahweh's dominance over the Babylonian kings would repurpose a legend originally about a marginal king, Nabonidus, which few may have heard, and apply to the most famous and powerful king which the Babylonian Empire ever had, Nebuchadnezzar. Conclusion, Daniel chapter 4 was not written by Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon. It was written by a Jew, probably hundreds of years later, who wanted to display Nebuchadnezzar as having been humiliated by his God Yahweh. In reality, however, Nebuchadnezzar dominated the Jewish nation while he was the king of the Babylonian Empire. There's no genuine historical evidence that he was ever humbled by the God of the Jews, as Daniel chapter 4 purports. This has implications for Christianity, as if Daniel chapter 4 is a forgery, then Jesus of Nazareth, who apparently identified himself with a figure in the book of Daniel as one of his central themes, and appeals to the book of Daniel in his preaching, was identifying with a figure in a fraudulent book written at least in part by liars who put words into the mouths of others. This would reveal Jesus of Nazareth to be a man who was deceived by a fraudulent book, a very late addition to the Jewish canon, with many other problems besides the one covered here, and therefore not a person worth following, as his worldview was warped by fraudulent religious scripture which he mistakenly believed to be authentic. So I'll submit that to Christians for any response. This is one of the major reasons why I left Christianity, not specifically Daniel chapter 4, but the book of Daniel in general. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.